Welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. I am your host, Tricia Carr. If you are new to this podcast, well, welcome. I hope you find information and energy here that will quench your spiritual thirst and also will aid you as you walk on your path of light. Path of light. What a beautiful imagery a path of light is, that purpose. What I see, what I feel when I bring this image and this sense of a path of light is that pull of purpose. So many of us seem to be on a spiritual seeking journey because we are yearning for that magnetic pull of purpose and that home frequency of being in purpose. It feels good. It feels right. It feels accurate, but it feels also ecstatic and bliss and all that you can imagine. Thirst is such a good metaphor for that as well. It reminds me of this song and this Bible verse, Old Man Lazarus, dip your finger in the water, come and soothe my tongue, something like that. But the soul is thirsty for that sense of purpose. So that's what I feel, or that's what I visualize when I think of the path of life, a path of light. It is the Christhood path. The Christhood path is not religious at all. The Christ consciousness frequency, the whole vibratory mode of Christ consciousness, it supersedes any concept created by humans, any religion, any philosophy. But it is, a philosophy that helps us to connect with something that is so great, so immense. Christhood is really spirit becoming human and human ascending to spirit, this beautiful cycle, this eternal cycle. Well, welcome. Here we are with an episode, and this episode is, I think it's moving forward in a concept from the previous one. This episode is entitled, Are You a Starseed Who Wants to Go Home? Now I'm going to explain what a starseed is if you haven't acquainted yourself with that term or come across it. And even if you don't exactly identify to what the most common sense of that word is, I actually, in the last episode, talked about an alternate version. So let's talk about what starseed is just as an overview. I'm going to call this like a cosmic starseed and a Gaia starseed. So if you heard the last episode, you already have an idea of what I mean by Gaia starseed. Cosmic starseed, or just what starseed usually refers to, are souls who have either never incarnated here on this planet, on Earth, or have rarely incarnated on this planet, or who haven't incarnated here for a long, long time. And some people don't necessarily orient to that, but they may orient to some of the other signs, sensations, and let's call them symptoms of being a starseed. And that's this feeling of not belonging, this feeling of being so different. And maybe you do just have a feeling of, I just don't feel right here. Now, for some, that feels like they don't feel exactly like this planet feels that familiar. And for others, as I said in that last episode, which is, Are You a Gaia starseed? You may connect with all of the other signs, except you have this deep connection and even familiarity with the earth. And so that is what I would say I call it, but I channeled it from spirit, a Gaia starseed. And so I channeled this sort of categorization. And this is similar to that cosmic starseed, but it's souls whose perhaps most recent or most significant incarnation on this planet was during a time of golden age on the earth, something like Atlantis or Lemuria. And the reason we still would call this a starseed and not just an earth seed is because in those golden eras, this planet was a different planet. So it's almost like it was completely different, but the earth herself is the same soul. Gaia is the same soul, but everything else that's happening with the humanity and just the energy is so different. And so it's, in a sense, a different planet. And so that's why you may kind of connect with a lot of that idea of the starseed, but you're like, but the earth feels like, me. And that's not to say that if you are whether we call it traditional, I don't know if it's tradition, if it's old enough to be traditional, but if the cosmic starseed, you may also love the earth too, but it still may feel kind of new or fresh. I'm not really sure, because I definitely feel like I'm a Gaia starseed. At any rate, if you want to hear more about that and even what it may be like some signs or sensations, what it would be to be either maybe a little more Lemurian or a little more Atlantean. And by the way, there are other golden eras. Check out that episode. It's linked in the description. It's both on the YouTube channel and the podcast. So it's possible that even though you feel, in a sense, at home here, you don't totally feel at home. And, Starseeds is this term that's kind of popular in spiritual community, but in the law of one, the raw material, as it's called. And if you're not familiar with that, check it out. You can go to L&L Research, search that online, and the raw material or the law of one, and they actually have it for free. But it's a channeled work. It's really profound. And raw is the social memory complex. It's a collective of ascended entities, but it's one essentially entity, yet it's a collective at the same time. And Ra calls this type of what we would say starseed or Gaia starseed, calls us wanderers, journeyers in the universe, journeyers here to help, and that we've been through Earth School or some other school enough so that we have learned the lessons that we can learn here. Essentially, we've graduated, and yet we are coming back because we will leave no brother or sister behind. And so we're here to anchor, we're here to uplift. And that is, I think that's a great, an even better reframe than just saying Gaia starseed or not. You may be really accomplished in your, and I don't mean this like in the human concept or the ego concept of accomplishment, but you may have moved through the lessons that are available here. Although the lesson of continuing to deepen the unity work by going back and anchoring and vibrating and healing and loving and being one and having compassion with your brothers and sisters. That's what is the wanderers or the starseeds or the Gaia starseeds. So this episode is, are you a starseed who wants to go home? Because I hear this a lot as a spiritual teacher, as a practitioner, and I hear it from my students. I hear it from one-on-one clients, and I see it on comments, on my channel and my YouTube channel and, various ways, and Instagram too. And it's this yearning, this strong desire, and it can even lend to a kind of depression, maybe even a kind of anxiety. So I wanted to break this down. Well, first of all, I want to be of help because I have, so much compassion. And of course, I have felt that way. And actually, a lot of the times that I felt that way, I was not open to the metaphysical content that we're talking about here, but I did feel out of place. Oh my gosh. They called me the white sheep of the family. It's supposed to be like the black sheep. They called me the white sheep because I was the one who was like, going to church and stuff, because that was how I was trying to find my spiritual alignment. And it was the only paradigm that my little 11-year-old knew how to find in Texas in the 80s. So anyway, from one white sheep to another. Let me tell you about what's happening here with this urge of going home. You see, we have to accept that the oversoul or the higher self has a plan, and the higher self permits our happenings, our events, our whereabouts, because the higher self can see the greater picture and is directing the lessons that we are pursuing. Now, we can push against that. We can resist it so much so that the higher self's like, great, not getting enough cooperation, path has to be changed, and then can permit some severe changes to it. But those usually just end up in repeating and deepening the challenge of the lesson. As patterns, something that we need to learn, it becomes a pattern so we can see it more clearly. So we have to accept that actually we are here. We do belong here. If we can accept that as a premise, then we can understand a little bit more what's going on with the strong desire to go home. And we can understand what we can do about it so that we don't have to live in that resistant, uncomfortable, even suffering state. So let me talk to you about what's happening in the metaphysical, in the spiritual perspective. So this urge to want to go home happens when we'll say ego mind, but we don't mean, this doesn't mean arrogance. Ego means the human-oriented mind or the human mind or the unconscious mind even. So when we have an unconscious mind trying to manage our spiritual knowledge. You see, your ego, you learn some new stuff and you do a little spiritual awakening and growing and learning, and the ego will start to say, okay, I get it. That's mine. And now I'm going to try to hijack that. And that can lead to spiritual bypassing and so on and so forth. Well, let me give you an example of it. So when we get a little bit of knowledge, that ego wants, it really attempts to own it because it wants to create status quo. See, the ego is resistant to change. It's resistant to change because the ego can only know what has been, and that's the only thing it trusts, which is unfortunate because we're always trying to improve, grow, and sometimes, we're trying to become better people, move into more abundance manifestation, be more comfortable, be of greater service to one another. So we have this resistant ego mind that always wants things to stay the same because it says change is dangerous. Change may kill us. And so as you kind of really, but when you really expand in your awareness and you have some spiritual knowledge now and it's shifting you and you really are able to chip away at that ego mind a little bit and it melts away a little bit. But then it starts, as it accepts, okay, well, this new thing, this new way of being, this new way of thinking and feeling, it didn't kill us. So now we're going to stop here. All right. So that's one thing that's kind of happening there. And the remedy to this, when we're feeling that urge, is really to try not to indulge in it, because then we're agreeing with the ego and it's not easy. And it is very human. And so we also have to make sure that we're kind of always in the seer position, because we don't guilt ourselves out of agreeing with the ego mind or vibrating to our pain body. We love ourselves out of it. We have compassion for it. So it's very human. And there's no achievement. There's no gold star for never being human. So the remedy is really a continued faith in that higher purpose. You can call to your awareness what I started this with, saying the higher self knows why you're here and has dispatched you into this incarnation because it is the soul's intention to be here, to be not only here, but as of now, from here and here for that purpose. And how we do that, we have that faith. We need to release all of the particulars, release the tension, release the whatever is showing up in your awareness that is creating the dissonance with the here. And that could be how awful people are to one another, the difficulty and stress of being able to have a good, safe, and prosperous life here. All of that stuff, if we can release all of the monkey mind chatter, go deeper into your consciousness practice. Clear your mind. Just do some breathing, because when we breathe deeply and slowly and consciously, we are activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, stress, worry, all of the particular. I'm saying particular. It's when, you're like, someone says what's wrong, and you could go on for 3 paragraphs, and then she did this and said this, and I know what that means. And this is a bit, you know what I mean? Like, those are particles. Those are a lot of dense particles, so much particularity. And then that tension, if we can that's what is happening when that sympathetic nervous system, which really is all that stress and worry, is a fight, flight. And procrastination, we'll throw that in there too, fight, flight, and freeze. So the sympathetic nervous system, this is a physical part of who you are. Nervous system is physical. Parasympathetic nervous system, we call that the rest and digest. When you're full, there's nothing to fight or flee from because you have had a meal. That's what this is, the body awareness, the body consciousness. And we are triune beings, body, mind, and spirit, and we can use any of that triunity to gain access into the deeper state and the aligned state. Because, in fact, we use all 3 of them come online in order for us to truly be in alignment and awakened to this higher mind, the spiritual mind. So we can start with any of the 3. We can start with the mind, do mindfulness. We can start with the body with some breath work, releasing tension. Or we can start with the spirit, the feeling nature, and feel toward us love, light, the state that we prefer. However we want to start, we get all 3 on board in order for us to truly be in that positive higher mind state. To do it with the body, it's kind of a neat trick, because you are capable of just breathing deeply and easily, slowly, deeply and easily, consciously, because that will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, that calm and rest and digest nervous system, the state of the body. And you see, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system are polar opposites. They cannot be activated at the same time. So if we do a breathing practice for just a few seconds, we are forced out of the sympathetic or the fight-flight state. It's super cool. So when we have the strong urge, I don't belong here, I want to go home, even just some breathing, slow and easy breathing, can begin to move us out of that discordant, disharmonious state of mind. And one of my most favorite, it's kind of an affirmation. It is a calling in of a frequency. It's a gentle affirmation. It's a magnetic pull of to really activate unconditional expectation, positive expectation. And this is to say to myself, to vibrate in my mind and in my feeling nature, something good is coming of this, or I wonder what good is coming of this. So if I were to feel I don't belong here, I want to go home. Having the faith that higher self knows why I'm here and is overseeing the divine lessons I'm here to pursue on my side. Spirit's got your back. And then take a few deep and easy breaths. And then, even though I can't see it now, I can wonder what good is coming of this. And that connects me to that faith. All right, so again, the fact is that the higher self is well aware of your higher purpose. I am reading Dolores Cannon's Convoluted Universe books right now. I'm in book 2. And at the beginning of book 2, she writes that she learned from, I think, several of her clients that there is a longer line for souls to incarnate on this planet in disabled bodies, in bodies that have compromise or atypical bodies, ones that are challenged. A longer line for that than the ones that are less challenged. And that's because the soul truly wants to, what we want to do is use each incarnation to the fullest. You want to learn the most. You want to grow the most, because that learning and that growth is your expansion, and that is the expansion of the universe. And we're all here to expand. We all are, because we're expanding the universe together. And I find that really quite beautiful. So that's one example of, I've been feeling very, very grateful that I get to have all of I have so many challenges. I've actually pondering that, that Dolores learned from her clients, that there's a longer line for the challenged bodies. It makes me so grateful for where I don't have challenges, and like my physical body is strong and healthy. And then it makes me so grateful to myself, to my higher self, for the challenges too. So I'm saying, oh, well, these were things that I stood in line for. My difficult family, the abuse, all the different things that, So that really inspired me. Because, paradox, this is like two conflicting concepts. That's what a paradox is. Look it up if you're not really clear on it, but that's what a paradox is. Two conflicting concepts in one. This is the greatest opportunity for expansion. So challenge is actually how we learn. Like in human design, if you're familiar with human design looks at our energy centers, our chakras, as being opened, like completely open, or undefined, or defined, meaning that there is a kind of structure in that energy center. And inside of that, there are also gates of the moon that are either open or undefined or defined. And so with those open centers in human design, the open centers are they're the most vulnerable for conditioning from the outside world. And they offer the greatest opportunity for wisdom, for gaining wisdom. So you see, that's a paradox. An open center, its potential is paradoxical. And that's what this universe is made of. God is one. I am an individual, and yet this universe is one, energy is one. That's a paradox. Okay, let's talk about what else is happening, metaphysically speaking, when this feeling of, I want to go home, I'm a starseed, or I'm a Gaia starseed, or however it is that you're feeling, I don't belong here. What's happening metaphysically? Well, I think this is pretty cool. You're probably going to find this pretty cool. Is that you are hearing, quote unquote, if you want to imagine the air quotes, hearing echoes of past or future timelines, past or future lives, or I just kind of call them all parallel lives, because we're talking about fluidity of time, or time is an illusion, and we just have all these lines that are all occurring at once. There's really only synchronicity. There's only one simultaneity happening. So if it's just easier for you, that you're hearing echoes of parallel timelines, future timelines, or even past. So if you're a starseed who maybe has as your home the Pleiades, and you went to that school so much so that you are coming from a soul complex that has achieved isn't the right word, but essentially graduated to a seventh density, and you're coming into this earth plane as a third density now, third and fourth, but third density. And so you're hearing, quote unquote, or feeling the echoes of those past timelines of being Pleiadian at a seventh density and in a context of seventh density. And so when you're kind of just hearing it unconsciously, it's almost like getting a whiff of something, then and it kind of like it stings, it pulls, it feels like unrequited. But in fact, even if you are feeling a past timeline of having been in a context of another star system or being in a different context of a higher density, more unity, what we need to do is we need to bring that to full awareness. And then the full journey can be appreciated. Basically, what you can do is explore parallel timelines. So you could do a past life regression, hypnosis. You can do a parallel timeline of the different ways that you have split off into other timelines because of decisions that you made in this perspective, this point of identity, but there are other points of identity that have split off. And then, of course, our future selves, we could be picking up on those because we're very sensitive to energy. We're very sensitive to the vibrations in the universe. And so I'm actually going to direct you to my YouTube channel because I either already do have, depending on when you listen to this, or will be having a video very soon that will dive deep and explore how you can look into parallel timelines. So go check out that YouTube video. And you may want to check the description of the show notes of this podcast, because as soon as that is published, I'm going to pop the link in there. So when you're hearing the echoes of past, parallel, or future timelines, and you're feeling some kind of dis-ease, unease about it, the best thing we can do is to really explore them, knowing that this is the timeline, the here and now that higher self has aligned you to. But you can welcome the wealth of the knowledge and existence in those parallel past or future timelines so that you can feel comfortable. All right. Now, let's talk about karma. You see, there is a conundrum of having this desire to go home. Because you see, if we indulge that desire, we really welcome it, vibrate to it, identify to a kind of victimhood feeling, feel resentful. And again, this is not judgmental because we all do it. I'm calling us all out on this. But if we indulge this desire to go home, what can actually happen is that we can create karma. And that's the conundrum. Because we are not here, we wanderers, we starseeds, we Gaia starseeds. You're not here to create more karma. You're here to exist as freely as possible from provoking more karma. And we are here to exist to invoke more presence. You see, the simple indulgence of, I don't belong here, I want to go home, is a lack of presence, right? Because you're not here and now. And when we are not present, then we're not in alignment. We're not in alignment because God is only now. You, your higher self, the truth of who you are, is only now. Because that now is that simultaneity. Having an attachment to a when or a where, I don't belong here, is having an attachment to 3D. So that's the conundrum. It's a paradox that is being offered to be solved, because when we're having maybe a whiff of past parallel timelines and we have a homesickness, or we just feel so different, we don't belong, homesickness. In fact, the wanderer is home. The wanderer who has a history of something that has already done this lesson, yet came back here to be present with it. And so that's the conundrum. We could create more karma. And by the way, karma is, when I say karma, I am not talking about a traditional religious perspective. And I don't even know if it's to the letter of the law of the spiritual practice, or if it's how humans have interpreted it, about punishment and a wheel of punishment. Karma is more, I didn't do my homework, and so now I have to make it up. I have to make up that grade, or I have to do extra credit. That's karma. Not pursuing the lessons here in an alignment. And this doesn't mean that it's like, when I say we're not here to create more karma, that it's some kind of rigid, austere measure that no human could possibly do. I'm talking about it in a much more general sense. So creating more karma by continually living most of or the whole life in a victim identity would be creating karma for this life. So essentially you didn't pass the tests that you had put for yourself, so then you're going to do them again. But as a wanderer or a starseed, you've already done these tests. So if that's the risk of coming to an incarnation that you've already moved past those lessons, is that we go into the full illusion and we can get caught up, and we do get caught up in what's going on here. We fear for our survival. So we identify to death. That's what fearing for survival is in its most primitive, vibratory root. We, instead of being in holding the light and being a healer, we fight and we are angry. And these are the ways that we get caught up and can create karma. Now, again, we're talking about an overarching life. So, I mean, I'm so glad that I didn't continue the way that I was creating karma and living a karmic pattern earlier in my life. And again, I'm not perfect or anything, but I've definitely overall, I'm in a place that I have values or faith that I hold on to. Whereas there were times in my life where the values were separation and competition and victimhood. Those were the values. Those were the overarching values. So that's the great conundrum, is that indulging the desire to go home is non-presence and therefore not in alignment and can create more karma, which is not what we're here to do. All right. So let's sum up some of this. What we can do is that we can recognize the resistance when we're feeling it, become aware of it. So I don't belong here. I want to go home. Those are thoughts and feeling states that are resistance. It's resistance to the higher path. It's resistance to the higher awareness. It's resistance to the universal presence, the universal now, the simultaneity. And identifying to a particular 3D, to where we're cutting off that higher awareness. We do identify to the 3D, while paradoxically, at the same time, identifying more greatly to the higher awareness. It's like Russian nesting dolls, one inside the other. Now, of course, this is not to give us permission to spiritually bypass, to avoid our feelings. Like I said earlier, having the resistant feelings and thoughts, we actually want to give it more awareness. We want to nurture ourselves because that's human pain and it has a place. It's not something to be avoided. That only creates more patterning. It's not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something to feel guilty for. It is calling us to have compassion for ourselves. There. It is hard to be a human, and you're doing it anyway. And so let's release some of these particulars right now, and let's connect, get present, and connect with your support system. And visualize that path of light if that imagery works for you. Visualize and feel it, sense it. Because it is a hard path. This is a hard school, this earth thing that we are doing. So we want to have compassion. We want to embrace the fact that you did choose it and yet have compassion for yourself while you're doing it. Higher self chose it. You chose it. You are seamlessly, you are the higher self here. So embracing your choice aligns you with the higher mind and the higher purpose and will bring you back into the comfort of and the security and the ecstasy of that higher purpose. Reminder that indulging the resistance is contrary to embracing the higher path. But we love ourselves while we're in the resistance. We love ourselves through it. We acknowledge it. A child falls down and skins her knee. You don't say, that's stupid to cry. No, you love her through it. You comfort her. That's what you do with yourself. And so faith. I said it already, and I moved through it, but I want to say again, yes, faith. Faith has a bad rap, I think, for some. The word, sometimes we feel uncomfortable to use it or to let it have a true value, and that's because of religion, maybe dogma. Faith is actually necessary for every single human being to feel any kind of freedom, to feel any kind of happiness. Every single human, not just spiritual seekers, a particular kind of spiritual seeker or someone who feels like a wanderer or a starseed. Faith is necessary because faith brings us to presence. Because if we don't have faith in well-being, in that nature can support us, that we'll take our next breath, without faith, then the ego can take over, and it's just fight, flight. We want to then, on a practical side, to help us with this, I want to go home, if that is showing up, if we feel like foreigners here, if we feel like foreigners with our friends and family, coworkers, whatever it is, what's important is that we immerse ourselves in our devotional practice. I'm telling you, daily. And this is a love act that you do for yourself. It is your fitness practice for your spirit. You don't expect to be strong and fit and healthy and have a decent cardiovascular health if you don't move your body, right? If you don't feed it well and if you don't move it. Well, your consciousness practice, you are feeding it the good foods and you are moving it in the good way. So your devotional, I like to say devotional because I love that you are devoting it to yourself. You are devoting it to the universe, to God, whatever word you really, that sends you a humming when you think of that prime creator energy. So the devotional practice, gratitude practice. Oh my goodness, that inspiration I told you about earlier, that I was able to have gratitude for all that is easy for me. And that seems a no-brainer. But I was also so grateful for the things that have been challenges for me because I can see how they were lovingly curated for this incarnation, how I lovingly curated them from the pre-birth concept perspective. I lovingly curated my challenges for growth and for opportunity of learning and expansion. It's so beautiful. So the gratitude practice and the awareness expansion. Also immerse yourself in education. Thank you for being here. I hope this is an educational immersion for you. This is so important for us. If you have a job that you drive to, pop on one of your favorite books, a spiritual book, Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. I'm listening to in the car, listen to podcasts, of course. Subscribe and like and leave a review. But I'm listening to on audiobook, A Journey of Souls. Dr. I think his last name is Newton. Pardon. I will put it in the show notes. That's fantastic. Or, Dolores Cannon's. I like Penny Pierce's books. So, and then of course, spiritual podcasts and YouTube channels that find people that are aligned with what it is that feels like your path of light, education. Because the education is remembering what you already know, you wanderer, you. You already learned this. You went through the veil of illusion like we all did. And so as these things come online, it's a remembrance, and it is you accessing your already learned soul knowledge. And then also immerse yourself in fellowship. Just doing this, listening to a podcast is like fellowship because we are feeling one another. And we are connecting with one another, even though I'm, doing this in a studio one day and you're listening some other time. We still are, because once again, we exist in the simultaneity. We work and exist and live in the timelessness and the spacelessness, but also in the face-to-face and the hand-to-hand, if possible, or the face-to-face on Zoom, whatever works. in the communities, find your self-development circles, join the Light Shine Lab, which is Crystal Ann Compton founded it. It's on Facebook. You'll find the link there, and really get engaged, get involved, take some classes, because that fellowship is so important. If you feel like you don't belong here, people say find your tribe, find the people who you're able to recognize in one another that pursuit, that vibration, that frequency of aligning with the path of light and the unity. That'll help you to recalibrate and then go out into that world. And you don't have to be with your fellowship all the time, but it helps to power up your soul rather than to power it down. Positive fellowship it's focused toward unity. It's focused toward wisdom. Those are the things we want to set intention for when we're finding our positive fellowship. Okay. Well, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. A reminder that to check out for my YouTube channel for a different video that will help you I'm giving some techniques and a deep dive into how you can explore parallel timelines, past and future timelines, when you're hearing those echoes of the past, parallel, or future timelines, those past lives or future lives. I'm going to have that on my YouTube channel, so do subscribe there and click the bell so that you can stay on top of when new videos come out. And then I would love for you to like, subscribe, and, you can't really like here on the podcast, so let me digress. Would you please subscribe, however you're listening to your podcasts, and leave me a review. Leave a review on this podcast, even if you just want to hit 5 stars. But yeah, if you want to share it, that would be amazing, because we're sharing light then. And of course, it helps me in the algorithm. All right, let's see. Is there any recap I can do here? A recap that if you want to learn a little more about the Gaia Starseed, you can go check it out on the previous episode. And that what is happening is that the ego is trying to commandeer or hijack your spiritual knowledge. So we can watch out for that, trying to own it and keep the status quo. That is one of the things that is happening when we have an urge to go home. And the fact is that we are here for a higher purpose, that we are here always in the place that higher self knows what we're doing, and higher self and guides, angels, all of your team, all of the universe, in fact, are here always around helping you. They never, never abandon you. If ever I feel like I am alone, it's because I know I have chosen that so that I could feel empowered. That's what I tell myself. And I know that, in fact, I am feeling them right now. They are guiding me right now. My higher self is guiding me right now. And so I need to go deeper and get quieter if I want to experience it in a more, obvious way. To get more subtle, to experience them more obviously, or ourselves more obviously. We also talked about karma, that great conundrum that if we indulge the feeling, the desire to go home, or I don't belong here, then we actually could possibly create more karma. And you're not here to create more karma. You're here to exist as freely as possible. And you're here to exist to invoke presence. And the ways to move forward from this is to catch when the resistance shows up. The thoughts or feelings of I don't belong here, I want to go home. That's resistance to the higher path and higher awareness. And we want to immerse ourselves in faith. We want to immerse ourselves in our devotional practice, gratitude practice, our awareness expansion, our spiritual education, and our positive fellowship, which is oriented to unity and wisdom. And all of this, doesn't it all feel good? Well, that feeling good is your true vibration. That's your home frequency. All right, guys. Well, I think we'll call this an episode. And before I sign off, allow me to also point you to the Light Shine podcast. This is the podcast that Crystal Ann Compton and I do. We're talking about all kinds of wackadoodle things over there. So check it out. You can find it on YouTube as well as on our podcast feed. And you can find the links in the description. We're having a great time there. And I'm always having a great time with you. I appreciate you for shining your light on this beautiful planet. Thank you for pursuing spiritual expansion. Thank you for walking your path of light. And thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.